Hello and welcome. My name is Mark Horseman, data evangelist with DATAVERSITY. Today we're enjoying a special presentation from MetaKarta called Why Lineage Still Fails and What Modern Metadata Platforms Must Do About It. Just a couple of points to get us started. Due to the large number of people that attend these sessions, you will be muted during the webinar. If you would like to chat with us or chat with each other, we certainly encourage you to do so. And to note, Zoom defaults to send to just the panelists, but you may absolutely switch that to network with everyone. For questions, we'll be collecting them by the Q&A section. To find the chat and the Q&A panels, you'll see the icons for those features in the bottom middle of your screen. And as always, we will send a follow-up email within a couple of business days containing links to the slides, a recording of this session, and any additional information requested throughout the webinar. Now, let me introduce to you our speakers, Christian, Louis, and John. Christian is the founder and CEO of Meta Integration Technology Incorporated, a pioneer in meta data integration, and the force behind MetaKarta. With over 30 years experience, his technology powers metadata capabilities and platforms from Microsoft to Oracle. Louis is the sales director at Meta Integration Technology Incorporated, helping enterprise customers adopt MetaKarta and modernize metadata management and solve real-world data lineage and governance challenges. And John is the founder and principal of Apprentice Gate Advisors and is focused on advisory consulting, writing, and speaking about data architecture, data culture, data governance, and cataloging. He has 30 years experience in data management with several startups and service providers. He is an expert in data warehousing, BI, data integration, metadata, data governance, data quality, data modeling, application integration, data profiling, and master data management. And with that, I will give the floor to MetaKarta team. Hello and welcome.
Hi, Mark. Thank you very much. This is John, and I want to thank you for that introduction. And I, especially on behalf of all of us, want to thank everyone for spending some of your time today with all of us. We're extremely excited about this topic and to share with you our take on why lineage is still difficult, why it still fails, and what MetaKarta and meta integration in particular are doing about it. Right. So I have the pleasure of leading off today's session. And so to do that, I'm going to talk about some of the lineage opportunities and challenges that I see in my independent consulting practice. I'm then going to pass the baton over to Christian, who will walk us through an introduction of meta integration, the company, and then MetaKarta, the metadata management platform. And then we're going to hand off to Louis, who will take us through MetaKarta lineage demo. And then, as Mark said, we'll have time for some Q&A. So, with that agenda in mind, I'll just say, that was a very generous introduction that Mark gave for me. I'll just add some color commentary. Lineage opportunities and challenges. I've been involved with Lineage my entire career, and I mean, it starts way back in the Stone Ages of knowledgeware back in the early 90s. And there's my first exposure to metadata and what we were trying to do with computer-aided software engineering. And then you fast forward to essential software, and most people know of them through data stage and quality stage. But there was a really important part of that stack, which was called metastage. And then I spent some time Knightsbridge. Many of you will know that was a consultancy that was a leading implementer of data warehouses. And we developed the audit balance control mechanism, which was really all about operational and technical lineage and tracking and tracing it, right, which really supported the development of these large data warehouses. And then again, we fast forward and spent time as an executive with Calibra in 2015 to 18, and then field CTO with Elation. So I've had the pleasure of a lot of different stops and have been involved with metadata my entire career. Now, my commercial clients as Apprentice Gate Advisors over the last 2 years, really leading thinkers and data leaders who I've had the pleasure of working with are really thinking about, what they do with the next generation of governance and master data, and master data including reference data, and their data architecture, and lineage is squarely right in the middle of that. So it's with all of that background that I bring to you, my commentary here on the next few slides. One of the questions that I frequently get is, isn't lineage just a feature? Isn't it really just a tactical topic? I mean, why are we making such a big deal out of it? Now, I know some of you will laugh at that and say, well, of course it's a huge big deal. But, I've gotten this question actually quite a bit. And Lineage traditionally has provided tremendous value for these, based on these 3 bullet points I have on the slide, right? We all know it's it's the key to impact analysis. It's the key to planning. It's the key to controlling change, controlled change. Um, we all know that when things go bump in the night and we have issues, Lineage is the key to finding the root cause quickly and to then understanding sort of the blast radius and understanding how quickly we can get to resolution. So those are well known. It's also well known, especially in regulatory industries, that audit, Lineage is a key to audit readiness. It's one of the keys to saying, yes, we are following best practices. We are compliant. We have the reporting and the traceability to prove that. So these things have been true for forever, really, with Lineage in the data management world. So coming back to the question, well, isn't it just a feature? I mean, isn't this kind of a techie topic, and this is sort of a tactical thing that we just have to sort of check the box? The forward leaning data leaders that I work with are seeing Lineage really go up in sort of strategic importance for the what you see on the screen here, right? They realize that AI requires context. For AI to be smarter about our enterprise, it requires context. And they see and they understand that Lineage is much more than just a technical capability. It's this network of key assets that interrelate our data with our business process, with roles that people play, how those roles, the process, and the data it relates to our policies, how that all relates to our metrics, how that it's all interconnected. It's a network of assets. And Lineage is the best representation, or at least it should be, the best representation of that digital twin or data twin, whatever twin word you want to use that's in fashion these days. It is the best shot at having that context about our specific enterprises that's fed into the AI engine, right? And so this is what's really causing this strategic shift in Lineage importance. Now, I mean, that's a very exciting future, but it's not without its challenges, right? We all know Lineage is a really tough topic that we've all worked really, really hard on, but there's still major challenges and gaps. One of those is that Lineage can still lack breadth and depth, right? What I sometimes say, tongue in cheek, I say, Lineage needs to represent the metadata that goes COBOL to Kafka, right? And what I'm really saying is, needs to represent everything from legacy and on-prem to, modern SaaS and cloud and hybrid architects. If you're going to have this data twin of your enterprise and Lineage is going to feed that context to AI, then it's got to have everything. Unfortunately, most of the solutions that are out there today lack the breadth and depth. They don't go COBOL to Kafka, and they have these major blind spots. The second challenge is making the leap between different technologies and systems. Let me sharpen up what I mean by that a little bit. If you have a data asset, something super simple like customers represented in a SaaS application, customers represented in a Snowflake application, customers buried in some S3 files or some Azure data storage files somewhere, you could scrape up the metadata from all of those different tools and technologies and platforms. You need something that infers that they're all the same thing. You need some inferencing engine or a way of distilling or comprehending they're the same thing and then stitching that all together. Very, very difficult to do. And it's where a lot of Lineage tools end up being a silo, right? And you get lots of little silos, but you can't really connect them all, right? So that's still a challenge. The third challenge, as I see it, especially at the enterprise level, is really going back to the topic of change management. A lot of Lineage capabilities we have in various technologies today give us the as is state of our data estate, right? The as is. But what they lack is this ability to have layers of the sandstone, to have the as was state, and then compare the as was state of Lineage to the as is state, and maybe even to have a projected or a predicted future state based on changes that you're contemplating making in your architecture. Very, very important from a change management perspective at a complex enterprise level. Unfortunately, it's a big challenge. Not a lot of technologies offer that. And then the last one I would offer is really somewhat philosophical, and you could take your own position on this. But my position is that if you want to have an accurate depiction of your enterprise data estate, you need an unbiased view of that. And that means you need to have a metadata and a lineage solution that rides on top of all your technology instead of having one particular vendor present you their stack and saying they do lineage. But you know what? The truth is, it's all biased towards their stack and not the next guy's stack and the next guy's stack. And so again, you end up with these, these capabilities and these silos, and then it's hard to bridge between those. So unfortunately, we've had over the last year or two some of the emerging vendors that were independent, I'll call vendor neutral, lineage players get swallowed up by some of the big boys in the market. And so this is a risk. This is a challenge because again, I think we want this unbiased view of our lineage in our data estate. So that is a really brief take on what I see as the opportunity that others are reaching for and grabbing with Lineage, the exciting opportunity. But it's also a view for what I still see are the key challenges to us in the industry. So that being said, thank you for listening and again for being with us today. I'm now going to turn it over to Christian so he can start to paint the picture of how how meta integration with its MetaKarta data management platform are starting to address some of these challenges. So Christian, take it away, please.
Thank you, John, for the introduction. And I like a lot of the words you said out there, vendor neutral. And actually, when we prepare for these slides, I could not see a better transition to what we do at Meta Integration. So Christian here, I'm the founder of Meta Integration, and we've been around for a while. And yes, we're known by many as the Switzerland of metadata, but there is nobody in Switzerland in our company. We're the leading OEM metadata component provider to pretty much all large vendors out there. So as was mentioned a bit before, that includes Microsoft in the Microsoft Purview initiative. We provide the lineage for them of any tools. Same for Informatica, same for SAP, Oracle, SAS, Quest, Idera, Qlik, Talent, all these vendors. What they have in common, they did realize how important it was to have end-to-end lineage, and they wanted to OEM our software so that they could support any tools and technology in their initiative. So vendor neutral is very important. Most of the customers of our software, directly or indirectly, basically have been using pretty much every tool out there. It's mostly Fortune 500 companies. And every time when we ask, what kind of data integration tool, BI tools, and pretty much you have, the answer is always the same. You name one, we have it. And it's very important for a lot of these people to support not only where they're going to with the latest cloud solution, a Snowflake, Databricks, the latest BI with the latest Power BI, Tableau, or Qlik, but they also have classic architecture where they also have reporting in Business Object, Cognos, or MicroStrategy. And same for the left side. They have operational systems but on classic databases like Oracle, DB2, and they want to support all the way to the left, all the way to the COBOL copybook, all the way to the file systems, to the data lakes, and that's what this is about. So historically, Meta Integration has been exclusively focused on providing solutions for all these OEM vendors. And we have one version of our software for everybody. We're very keen on the integrity and equal opportunity to everybody. So when we do the lineage, for example, of Informatica Power Center, not only this is the lineage of Informatica Power Center used by Informatica for their data catalog, because we parse all the languages inside the Power Center or cloud data integration jobs, which can be Spark, which can be Teradata SQL, that can be Snow SQL, but we also do the same for everybody around. So the lineage of Purview on Power BI, because we have all the emulators of Power Query, that's us. So now we offer this directly to customer, available under the platform name MetaKarta. So talking about MetaKarta, if we go to the next slide, please. really you got to think about it as more than a catalog, but a full metadata management platform. In fact, I've done only metadata all my life, the past 30 years. And there are two names that I don't like is data catalog and data connectors or metadata connectors. Frankly, the catalog is just an application. What you really need is a full metadata management platform with change management, the ability to stitch metadata from all technologies, not just regular relational databases, but also file system, NoSQL, hierarchical systems. And you need to really have that well integrated in a full platform. Data catalog, data mapping, data modeling, all these are applications on top of that. And we have tons of those on this platform. And really, at the end of the day, what this is about for the success is to really connect business and IT. In our technology, we have all the business applications, including custom business meta model as much as you want. You can have glossaries, you have governance, the data products, everything on top. But underneath, you have to prove where these come from at the technical level where you can show the IT group. This is that particular transformation on that particular line of code or on that particular job in Talent, in Power BI, and that's what you need to change. And for this, it's not superficial. So a data connector is really not what it is. It has full parsers, emulators, stitchers that can pinpoint exactly. If there is a GDPR compliance, you detect an SSN in the data lake deep inside, you can get it through all the transformation on the staging areas, in the bronze, in the gold, all the way to page 34 of a particular report on the other side. And if you want to remove it, you need to know where it is. So change management is not something you add after. It has to be built in. This way, business users can talk to IT. Our other key differentiator is mostly on the deployment and on pricing. We have the same software available on the cloud, on turnkey solution on the cloud, but also you can deploy it on your own private cloud or data center. There is no difference between our cloud and non-cloud version of a software. So this is why this is used by a lot of extreme large banks, governments, and a lot of industries who do not want to use a vendor cloud. They want their own system and they have access to that. Another big differentiator is unpredictable pricing. We also wanted something different. So we are not working on named users, on capacity pricing. When you buy an edition of our product, it includes all connectors off the box, no extra price per connectors. And anybody who has a corporate login, an LDAP, any type of logging on your system SSO, can log on the system. This is not a named user that you pay. You basically, we calculate the concurrent users. It's another way of thinking about it. You can have 20 concurrent users, producers among unlimited users, and of course, unlimited customers at the same time, consumers. All this being said, it's better to go straight into it and see some real data lineage in action. I'm gonna turn it to Luis for a little bit more details.
All right, thank you, Christian. Give me a minute while I share my screen. Can everybody see the screen okay?
Yes, sir.
All right, great. All right, let's go ahead and get started. The demo will take about 20 minutes, so I'll leave plenty of time for questions and answers. As Christian already alluded to, the solution can run anywhere. MetaKarta can host it. It can be hosted on your cloud or even, installed traditionally on-prem. But before we jump right into, everyone loves to jump into table and column level lineage. The first thing is a lot of tools create even more silos of lineage. So with MetaKarta, we always start with is an enterprise architecture diagram. So this diagram, there's probably 30 different technologies here, but it's laid out easily so you can understand how the data is flowing. You can see that it's coming from a data lake on S3. It's moving through some staging areas, flowing into SQL Server, being transformed by both Talent and Informatica into SQL Server, and Snowflake, and there's about 7 or 8 different BI tools as well. So the first thing is to get the most complete view of Lineage. You really need to understand not only the modern data stack, but the classic data stack as well, right? Also, you need to really go deep on BI and data integration tools. A lot of databases are similar in nature, right? They'll look slightly the same. They'll have, columns, table schemas, but BI tools are all very different. Things are named wildly different between Power BI and Tableau and Click. Same thing for data integration tools. You really need a great understanding of, DBT versus Power Center versus Azure Data Factory. And with our 30 years of history, we support all of these technologies. So at the high level, this architecture diagram gives you the ability to explain to any stakeholders, to any of the business constituents, exactly what's going on, right? So rather than just jump right into Lineage, this high-level architecture diagram shows you how data is flowing through this environment. And you can have many different versions of this, right? So I'm going to go ahead and start to dive deeper into Lineage. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm thinking about changing my customer table, and I want to see the impact analysis of where it came from, as well as the impact analysis on what it's going to change. So this happens to be a SQL Server table. We have all of the normal metadata you would expect in here, data types. We have all the crowdsourcing available. But for today's demo, we're going to focus in on the Lineage, right? Lineage is, a great form of relationship. So one other thing I want to point out, as long as your database has primary and foreign keys, we're also going to auto-generate an ER diagram for you. So if it's in the software, we'll go ahead and look at it and create it for you. This is, most cloud databases like Snowflake and Databricks have introduced this recently as well. So this is, related to Lineage, but gives you the ER diagram view of it as well, right? And even before you get to Lineage, a lot of people think the big draw of Lineage is really seeing the impact analysis or what that's going to affect. So we have a great tab here called Related Reports. So if we think about changing this one customer table in our staging data warehouse, it's going to affect these 38 reports, right? So this requires a deep understanding of, 10 different BI tools, Tableau, Business Objects, Cognos, you can all see here, as well as since we have a great understanding of the Microsoft ecosystem, we figured out Excel Lineage as well. You'll see that a little bit later in the demo, but for every BI report out there, there's probably somebody using Excel as well. So that's a first-class citizen in our Lineage world as well to be able to see the impact there. All right. Finally, we're going to jump on to the Lineage tab. So a lot of Lineage looks very easy in the first few minutes. You see a high-level diagram, everything looks pretty. So here's our high-level diagram, right? We can see that it's flowing from a file system and a data lake into our staging data warehouse, then into Snowflake and some BI tools. So the first thing we always strive to do is bring this back to you in a very relatable diagram, right? There's probably 300, there's probably 3,000 nodes of information behind this. So rather than overload you with a spaghetti chart, we'll allow you to kind of peel back the onion and see different layers, right? So the first thing we want to do is we can go ahead and click on our staging data warehouse, and we want to go ahead and expand that. That's going to show us the tables that are inside there, all right? The next thing we can do is expand our on-prem DW as well. All right. So this gives us a better look what we're looking for. So we can see where customer is flowing from our staging data warehouse to our on-prem data warehouse without being overloaded. So there's many choices. Right now, we're looking at the entire Lineage diagram. If you just want to see adjacent steps, one up and one back, you can go ahead and click on that and see a different picture. Or if you want to see the entire thing, you could do that as well, right? In this case, the next thing you want to see is we're seeing how the data flows from our customer table downstream. In this case, we also want to look at the columns. So I'm going to go ahead and say, click on all the columns. And when we click on all the columns, you'll notice that this link up here updated itself. Before, there were only about 60 nodes of data. As soon as you introduce columns, we have over 360 nodes and, another 1,271 links. So these lineage diagrams can get very complex. All right. So this will allow us to get more real estate. We're going to expand the bottom panel. And if we want to see very detailed column level lineage, we can click on any one of these columns. So down below, we're not simply just drawing lines from A to B. We're telling you exactly how this customer description was formed. So this actually came from many sources. You can see there's a stored procedure, that's doing a cast statement. There's a where condition on there. We also have some DML statements that are contributing to it, as well as somebody that mapped it as well. So this one column in our customer table, the customer description, can have many ways that it was populated. All right, so that's a great view down to the level of lineage we get on a column. All right, the next thing I want to take a look at is if we go ahead and we see how the data flows from our staging data warehouse to our on-prem data warehouse, and we click on here. Here, for anybody in the room that's used Power Center, you can see the familiar Informatica icon or the Salesforce icon if you saw today's news. So what we want to do is take a look at the Informatica Power Center lineage, moving the data from our staging data warehouse to our on-prem data warehouse. What this requires is extensive knowledge of this particular ETL tool. Right? We happen to have an OEM relationship with them for over 2 decades, so we fully understand all the transformations, everything that's going on in Power Center, as well as Informatica Cloud data integration. This shows you, familiar transforms that you'll see. We do the same level of detail for Talent, for Data Stage, for Azure Data Factory, DBT, and many other integration tools. And if we go ahead and take a look at the lineage, so this looks drastically different from our column level lineage because we are looking at the ETL diagram now. So this is what Informatica Power Center looks like to MetaKarta. We can see on the left-hand side our staging data warehouse. And if we click on any of the tables, it'll show us exactly what process is being used and what downstream tables in our on-prem data warehouse are being used. Right? So you can click on each table and see the diagram change a little bit. So this is how it looks like in our data flow. But, this Power Center job is not the only thing in this picture. So if you want to see how this will relate to the outside world, we have many different views of lineage. A lot of vendors have one view of lineage. Just in the ETL arena, we have 4 different views. The next thing we want to take a look at is the external data flow. So this shows us the Informatica Power Center lineage in relation to everything else, right? So this shows you the breadth. You could zoom in to make it more digestible, and you can search on it, etc. But this just gives you an idea of how much is involved in this. The next thing though is, let's say you did determine where there was a problem with the lineage. So now it's not, you just don't want to go ahead and find it. You want to actually correct it. So you're probably going to have to talk to someone on the Power Center team. So in that case, we have a transformation data flow. And this is exactly what it would look like to the Informatica Power Center developer, for example. So you can see all the, the source qualifiers, things that you're familiar with in Informatica. You can see filters, etc. But this really allows whoever's looking at the lineage picture to go ahead and talk to the ETL team or the data integration team, tell them exactly where it is, and get this problem fixed. All right. So far, we've seen 2 good examples of different types of lineage, actually 3. We saw the high-level architecture view. We saw the detailed column level view that was very detailed. And here we see the internals of a data integration tool, right? Because they're all very different types of lineage, right? The next 2 things that we're going to take a look at is specifically Excel lineage, right? And we'll show you that in a tree view instead of our diagram view, just to give you another option. And then we'll go to a tougher example. We'll look at some PySpark jobs that would derive from Databricks notebooks as well, right? So because in order to complete your lineage picture, you need to make sure you're getting BI lineage, data integration tool lineage, obviously all the SQL and view creation and DDL and databases, but you also need to support code like PySpark, etc. And we'll show you examples of that as well. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and take a look at our Excel example. And a lot of people, like to look at the graphical end-to-end lineage view. They're very familiar with that. But if you want to take a view at everything that we get, say, from Microsoft Excel, we can also view it in an Explorer view. So you can keep opening up. You can see all the workbooks that we're working on. And if you click on them, you can see we're getting a great deal of lineage from Excel. And a lot of people don't even consider Excel when they look at their enterprise lineage project because they don't think there's a way to do it. But Excel is based on Microsoft Power Query. So anytime you go to the data menu and you grab data from a file or another database and move it around, we can capture that lineage. All right, so this shows you all the different sheets in Excel that we're getting it from, all the different queries that populate it, right? You can also see if there's any relationships between these different Excel diagrams. And then finally, if we go ahead and take a look at the lineage, you can see the lineage in the Excel world, right? I'm going to probably argue this is a little tough to look at, so I can go ahead and collapse all. And that's going to show me the high level. Once again, back to our high level diagram. So it always gives you the ability to zoom in and out. But now if we want to go ahead and expand Excel, we can see that our on-prem data warehouse spreadsheet populates our downstream finance. And if we expand that even more, you can see every table, every transform in there as well. All right, so just to bring it back up to a high level, Excel is treated as a first-class object. You're able to get, all the information you need out of it as well. You can see it in a tree view, or you can see it in the standard lineage view as well. All the connections, everything you need to do complete Excel lineage. All right. The next lineage example I want to take a look at is a Databricks notebook using PySpark, right? So pure code, no ETL tool, no BI tool, no SQL involved. So right now we're looking at our enterprise architecture. MetaKarta is very good at slicing up metadata because if you're on the enterprise architecture team or the governance team, you might want to see the full architecture view that we just looked at, right? But let's say you're only on the reporting team or the AI team or the Databricks team, we can go ahead and switch over to the Databricks architecture and take a look at the architecture diagram here. So these are all version controlled, and they do a great job at segregating metadata. Let's say you work for a big company and the commercial area is not allowed to look at what R&D is doing. You can keep them totally separated without having to roll out two catalogs. But here is our Databricks example. So we can see it's less busy. There's only two BI tools involved in this process. And this view also gives you another way to drill into the lineage. So I could drill into my bronze staging area in Databricks. And if you're familiar with Databricks, they tend to have three environments for, bronze, silver, and gold. So you can do all your transformations and standardize data. So here we can see the staging area. And I could go ahead and drill down to our staging DW, even down to the table that I'm looking for, our customer table again. So here's our customer table. But now when we look at lineage, all right, we can see at a high level that it's coming from our bronze staging area to our gold area. But if we look down at the bottom, right, you can also see that it's coming from a Databricks notebook using PySpark. So let's take a look at that. All right, we're going to go ahead and open it. So the first thing we do is show you every line of code. So we're documenting that as well. So this is probably a, 300-400 line PySpark code. So we look at everything in there. We can figure out all the different transformations. But really our strength is turning this into a graphical view. So let me go ahead and click on the lineage. All right, so what's going on right now is over on the left-hand side, we have our bronze staging area. All right, and in the middle is our PySpark job. We've gone through and parsed the PySpark job to break it down into, graphical units. And if you click on any of these units, you can see which table will be affected on both sides. All right, and then it's loading our gold data warehouse. All right, you'll notice that a new button appears down at the bottom for scripts. And when we go ahead and click on scripts, this allows you to do two very powerful things. You can either click on the transformation in the diagram, and that will show you where in the code you are. But really in the real world is you may not have any idea where it is in the UI. You're familiar with this code. As we click in the code below, it'll actually go ahead and highlight what it's doing in the UI as well. All right, so this is very important to show you exactly where you are in the code. So this will work on many different types of code. And some of our customers had even commented as more and more data integration may be generated by AI. AI will be great to figure out some things, but there's no way to represent it back to a human. So we'll be able to parse code like that as well. So this is our fourth example. It's really taking we're able to connect first to the file system where the Databricks notebooks are. In one step, we can go ahead and pull out all the PySpark from those notebooks, stitch it together from the bronze to the silver to the gold area, and then allow you to navigate it through the code as well. All right, so those were our 4 examples of Lineage. All right, and I'm going to go back and just recap real quickly. First, we really started with a high-level architecture diagram. All right, so now we're looking at the Databricks one. We're going to go ahead and switch back to our enterprise architecture. So this is really the best view for explaining overall Lineage to someone at the organization, right? Exactly where it's coming from. So it originates in a S3 data lake. It goes through some transformations. And we're not only doing data lineage here. That's the focus of this webinar, is going through the data lineage and looking at in-depth technical lineage. But we're also relating it semantically to things like our glossaries, to best practices, to business policies. So we also do a good job of inheriting semantic lineage, meaning if you documenting something once at the source in the data lake, for example, we'll be able to carry that through as well. All right, so that concludes about our 20-minute demo right now. So at this time, we're going to go ahead and open it to questions.
All right, we have a number of fascinating questions, and chat, you've been very busy, so thank you for that. And there's a lot of curiosity about MetaKarta. We have one questioner who asked one of my favorite questions. And so we're going to start with this one. Besides the massive amount of time, they say, of just building these views of enterprise data flows, how do you keep all this information updated regularly so it's not that far removed from reality?
Yeah. Yeah, I'm actually going to jump back to the my screen for that for a second, if that's so. That was in reference to this architecture diagram, right? So this is a very pretty picture. We've put some colored boxes behind it, but other than that, everything is built automatically as you connect to these different sources of metadata. So if I go out and connect to Power BI, it's going to bring in the Power BI icon. Then when I go ahead and stitch it using our Power Center lineage to the on-prem data warehouse, it's going to build the line. So anytime you see this little plug, you can go ahead and click on it and see the lineage that was stitched together. So this is not a static PowerPoint picture. This is kind of a living, breathing architecture diagram. So, other than the simple coloring, there's nothing extra that I had to do. So this is going to be maintained and up to date, because as you connect to your metadata bridges, your BI tools, your databases, your ETL tools, this gets automatically created. If I was to, delete out Talent and put it in Informatica, this architecture diagram would be updated as well. So there's no extra work to be done. And this is not something where you sit there and drop icons on for 5 hours as well. It's kind of a living, breathing representation of what's going on in your repository. Hopefully that helped.
I will add a little bit to that. Thank you, Luis. This is where the term metadata management platform comes into play. Obviously, nobody has done anything manually behind all that. The way this thing works pretty straightforward. You point to the big server. You point to each of your BI server. You point to your data stores, your data lake, and you let the system do what they need to do. So basically, when you point to a server like Cognos or Power BI, it will extract all the reports. It will extract all the information you need, and also fabricate what we call data connectors behind it. So now on the old generation of BI, it's pretty straightforward because they had a BO designer, a Cognos FM layer. But today you can see thousands, if not hundreds of thousands of reports where they each do their own connections. So when we connect to these largest Power BI server or Tableau server, we retrofabricate the connectors, factorizing everything where they're connected to the same place. So you got a bunch of connections. Then you harvest your data stores and you just once pinpoint where these things are. So for example, that's where the data warehouse is, because sometimes they might have referred to it by the IP address, sometimes by a fixed name, by another type of connection. And this is where the automatic stitching gets into place. Then the systems and the version management maintains itself. So at the appropriate time, it can be as real time you want, but these systems are very busy. Often it's at the end of the day, they harvest and update themselves. We have detection of change management. Only 10% of this big data warehouse or this BI have changed. So it takes only a few minutes to get the latest metadata, restitch automatically, and have a new version of your configuration. And yes, this diagram, this enterprise architecture diagram, is generated automatically. All you do for the pleasure of presentation is put some background colors if you want to make it out there. But this is not what you think your enterprise architecture is. This is based by reverse engineering all your DI ETL inside.
Awesome. We do have another question from a Q&A here, and I think we've got a potential user here who's curious about how you might do something. And their question is, how do you reconcile a lineage break? And I guess my interpretation of that would be if something wasn't scanned that's kind of in between two objects in lineage, like how do you fix that up or add that in?
This is an excellent question. This is where change management is about. So not only every model of your data warehouse, of your data lake is under version management, but you can even predict a future version for change management. So for example, you can point to a dev server and have areas where the data warehouse is going to change. Added a couple of tables, change a couple of columns, change the data types. That's the worst one. Change the data type of a customer ID from a string to an integer or even another value, like for example, a success value, customer success value from a string to an integer. The automatic stitching will detect that this is no longer a perfect match because even each tool are using generic data types versus physical types. We detect this and match. So from that new version, we can pinpoint exactly how many ETL job or ELT job in DBT or Spark script need to be updated, how many reports need to be updated, but not only how many, where, at which page, which transformation, at which line. So this software behind Lineage is also used with the automatic stitching and change management where you need to do the change. How much will it cost? How much time? You can even use it to validate your change. That's automatic stitching is very, very, very important. And it's not about relational databases. Remember, in today's technology, you can have a data warehouse that has a type, but is a complex type, which connects to a stitch to a JSON file, which is an array of a structure, which itself contains an array inside. These are not easy problems to resolve.
Yep. Yeah, and I just wanted to share for a second, add to that. So during the demonstration, we were taking a look at the diagram view of the lineage, but we also have a very helpful tree view of it as well. So if you want to go ahead and click on a table and, switch over to the lineage and take a look at the tree view, will tell you everything that's impacted and you can go ahead and download this to a CSV or a file. But this is a great, the graphical one is great for understanding it. For impact analysis, we also have this tree view where I can click on customer and see all of the, downstream reports, tables, etc. It's going to file as well. So this is one Lineage view I didn't show in the demo, but a great way to see the impact analysis.
But Christian
And behind
and Christian and Lewis, can you also talk? I was quite surprised when I saw this, and pleasantly surprised in MetaKarta, because for years, we different consultancies and places where where I was involved, we did mappings via Excel spreadsheets, right? We mapped source column to target column, and and everybody still largely lives on mappings in Excel, and I was really blown away when I saw that mapping. Not only do you guys create mappings automatically based on Lineage, but somebody could also create their own mapping, right? Can you talk about that
that
a
is
little bit?
correct.
Because I think that may actually help answer that question when they said,
Yeah,
how do you bridge from one place to another, right?
yeah, that's right. Data mappings. So first of all, this is a platform, a metadata management platform. Everything is under version and configuration management, like a multi-tenant. You can, restrict the views. You can have the development versus the other architectures. But there are always some missing links, especially on the left side of the picture. On the right side of a picture, all BI, the data warehouse, all this is good. But the more you go on the left, you can have a complex piece of code that is used out there, or some old COBOL copybook that basically COBOL code that takes a mainframe COBOL file and produces CSV out of that, but does some transformation. So data mappings can be used from any technology at any point in times, and these data mappings can show you all transformations. You can write actually even SQL transformation into it, and they will be involved in the lineage just like any other technologies. So we do have a couple of data mappings in this demo. If you get back to the big picture of the enterprise architecture, I think there are some data mappings on the left side of the pictures illustrating the cases of, here is an example here, where the data mapping was used to connect different systems. We also have data mapping scripts, data mapping languages, neutral languages across technology that you can bring in automatically.
Yep.
Thank you, John, for the question.
You.
Here is a mapping that goes from 2 CSV files and with some transformations that goes out there. Some people have used these data mapping tools initially for doing gap analysis, missing links in the lineage. But then obviously you can use that as a requirement tools to produce its implementation in any DI, ELT of your choice. And you can even trace lineage after that and compare lineage so that you see if it still comply to the original specification of that data mapping.
Yeah.
So we've got a number of questions coming up here that are very similar. So I'm going to combine a few questions here. Does this environment work with spatial data like ArcGIS? And then we're also getting asked, does it work with Discover Lineage from MuleSoft? Does it work with Database? Does it work with the Intelligent Data Management Cloud and Informatica? People are excited. DAX and Power BI is on the list as well from one questioner. Yeah, people are interested in what we connect with here.
The best solution, and thank you, somebody put the links out there. You can go to our supported tool page, and from there, there are multiple ways to slice and dice. On the left, on the filter, as you can see, you can pick per category. So first of all, you can say, for example, NoSQL databases, as somebody was asking for that. Here are all the NoSQL databases that we support. And then when you find the bridge of selection, you can click on its specifications. So not the first link at the top, but the second link. And that will tell you the parameters of a bridge, its whole documentation, and also the mappings. Again, for us, supporting a tool is not about having a pretty picture, do you or do you not support this tool? This is about telling you all the versions we support, the metadata coverage, what kind of languages and transformation. To do an ETL tool today like Power Center or Talon, you need to have an emulator for about 500 native transformations inside. You can go ERP tools, you can do any of these out there. So that's one way. Or you can search by name. You can type at the top JSON, for example, and you get back to all bridges, and then you type JSON, it will tell you anything related to JSON. File system, of course, we can go straight to file systems. Not only these files are inside a data lake to go into that. So depending on the technology, it's hard for me to answer them one by one, but go there and explore and drill inside to see the metadata coverage and exactly what we do for each of these technology. We can answer particular question, follow up directly with us if you have a particular technology. All of these bridges are driven by these 10 OEM partners we have. It's an equal opportunity, so they all have access to any current and future bridge we have. We not only support what they will release next year because we integrated in their software, we also support what they released 10 years ago. And even if some software is not supported anymore, we still have a bridge running because, you know, some of these large companies still have a software running on-prem, and we still have to support Lineage. We support data modeling tools like Irwin. We support versions of Irwin that are 15 years old, as well as we are right now preparing the release of the one that is going to be released next month, the version 15. That's our job.
All right. And then we got another questioner asking one of my favorite Lineage questions. How far does the Lineage extend into the BI layer? Does it stop at the semantic layer, or can it extend into the reports and dashboards loaded by the semantic layer?
So I'd like Louis to pick one, you know, Power BI, for example, or Tableau or whatever. See, the difference between BI and BI is very hard because it's different. In data stores, you got all the relational foundation meta model behind it. Every BI has its own way of thinking. So you got to really look at the steps inside. This is where, you know, GDPR is detected and you need to remove the use of an SSO. And if you take Lineage out of that, for example, you will realize how deep we have to go inside these BI tools. So in some of them, they have pages of reports. We pinpoint to the pie chart, to the table inside where it goes in. And something we didn't show today because that was not the purpose of this. We also have something very important, which is opening tool. That's the ability, that's the web browser extension add-on, where when you see the Lineage, when you have the related reports before, and you could see all these impacted reports, if you have the rights to that reports, you can say open in tool. And once you are on the tool, you see exactly where it is. We also have an add-on because we have the native ID of every single of these BI tools to go the other way around. You can be in any Click, Tableau, Power BI, Cognos reports. And once you are there, you can directly see on the right what's the Lineage. You can click on it. So you can go back and forth. That would be a complete different webinar to go between these different tools. But see, for example, on this one, this particular, wherever it started from, is really on that particular page one and exactly where it is. And for this, you need the original meta model of every single tool. And you need to be able to prove to the developers of that BI tool exactly where they need to do the change and where is the impact. You cannot be at the high report level, at the table level or column level. You're just at the beginning of a Power BI. You can have as many transformation. We have seen in Power BI sometimes like a whole ETL with Power Query at the beginning, but does as much as what should have been done with a data prep tool. So you can see data transformation as much inside the BI, inside the DI, inside the database itself, inside the stored procedures. So going as deep by parsing every single line is key.
I love that answer, Christian, because I've seen some of those amazing preparation steps in Power BI.
Oh, yes. Power, Power BI, in fact, starts from the Excel group. It started from the Power Query, but that is why we've done the lineage from Excel. And you need not only the Power Query parsers inside, but all transformation languages of Microsoft. When we started with Microsoft, they were cool with Microsoft until they realized our Power BI deep lineage or SQL Server deep lineage was very, very going into the details.
That's a great segue to another question here. And I think probably on the minds of many of our viewers today. Like where do Excel files need to be stored for MetaKarta to read them into Lineage?
Excellent question. So this is something we evolved. Initially, we got pressured by some of his large customers and partners say, well, this BI tool, but we have Excel. So we have them supported now in multiple areas. Initially, we created a dedicated bridge for Excel, and then we realized, no, Excel is everywhere, not just on the file system. So obviously, we support it on the file system, that is like any of your data centers, but we also extended these days. We are releasing this week, actually, perfect question, our OneDrive bridge. And in OneDrive, you can have already a lot of Excel spreadsheet. So not only thousands of those like we've seen in one customers, but Excel based on Excel, based on Excel, where at any level, people were taking everything from the data warehouse that we were on Snowflake, but taking some from SQL Server. And again, you have to have a lineage. So that technology we have for Power Query parsers is independent of where the Excel is located. So right now, as it is today, it's offered on any file system as well as on OneDrive by the end of the week. When I say OneDrive, SharePoint, it's the same technology of Microsoft, basically on the cloud.
I think we have time for a couple more questions here. We got one question in. Is there a functional limit to the number of nodes and links that can be displayed on that lineage map?
No, there are no functional limits, but what we really work hard on is to find the right sizing to display the right information at the time. So we allow a lot of filtering left and right so that you can focus where you want to be, but the lineage analyzed behind, it's an extreme large graph. And this is the big difference. Anybody can do a simple lineage presentation and demo, and we were part of them today. But when we're talking to a lot of customers and you hit the fact table on the data warehouse, there are millions at the column level that are affected. So you need to get it right. We didn't even get into the details that we don't do only data flow. We also do control flow. So we disabled those on this demo, but with control flow, this is the data is coming from the left to the right, but you can have a filter, a condition out there. We detect that, and then we basically go into the details out there. So we give you warnings like, watch out, we can display that for you, but you're gonna have a pasta plate. How about you can filter, you have plenty of adjustments you can do to try to reduce it to a measurable, to an analyzable picture of a diagram. But there are no intrinsic limits since internally, and fortunately or unfortunately, we work with customers who were on the edge of what they could do with a data warehouse, whether it's Google BigQuery, Teradata at the time, Azure or Snowflake today, very, very large.
Excellent. Well, I think we have time for one more quick question. We've got one viewer out there. This looks excellent. Our enterprise reporting is delivered using Oracle Analytics Cloud, while self-serve is Power BI. Is there any support for OAC and the presentation, business, and physical metadata layers that it is built on? We also use the Oracle Data Integrator for our ETL tool. Is the repository behind ODI also supported?
So definitely we support ODI for many, many years, and so is the analytics. In fact, quite a few years ago was something called Oracle Financial Analysis Application, which was a huge application based on Oracle with all the analytic part but was based on OBIE and evolution of it. Initially, VTL was, I believe, on Power Center, then on ODI. And this is an example where you point to all these technologies, stitch all these together. This is actually an interesting story of Lineage and stitching, which is perfect for the conclusion out there. When we worked with all these experts of Oracle financial analysis application out there, basically we did all the stitching, and we found at some point that one of the OBI, EE, and the analytic reports had a different data type expectation than what they had on the data warehouse. They didn't have noticed it. And therefore, some of the reports were actually not accurate. So the Lineage can really help you debug UIT, where everything looks connected the right way, but one change in the data warehouse didn't get properly impacted everywhere in the BI reports. And we had that warning in the Lineage. Thank you very much, everybody.
Yeah, thank you. That's all the time we have for today's presentation. Thank you, chat, for being so electric as always and being so engaged in question and answer. Any final parting thoughts before I hit the end webinar button, gentlemen?
Well, I'll take this one. Just a thank you to everybody, and thanks, DATAVERSITY for organizing the webinar. This is a very tough topic. We're trying to make it as simple as we can, but that's very important all the way. I was at a conference last week on AI. It was all about trusted data, and behind the trusted data was not just the DQ right there, but the lineage. Where does it come from, and where does it go to? That's what data products are about, and that's what we try to achieve. Thanks, everybody.